You know, we live our entire lives in 3 dimensions. But have you ever stopped to think, what if there's a fourth? It sounds like something straight out of science fiction, right? But it's actually a concept that shapes everything, from how we understand the entire universe to the movies we watch. So what exactly is the fourth dimension? And how does it totally change our view of reality? Well, let's find out.
Okay, before we go any further, I want you to lock this one idea in your head. This sentence right here, it's the key to everything. Seriously, if you can just hold on to this core concept that 3D is like a frozen photograph and 4D is like a dynamic, changing movie, then everything else we're about to talk about is going to click right into place.
So, before we can even think about jumping into the fourth dimension, we've got to make sure we're all on the same page about the three we experience every single day. Let's start with the basics, our familiar, tangible reality.
Just think about a simple cardboard box. You can measure its length, right? Left to right. You can measure its width, front to back. And you can measure its height, top to bottom. That's it. Those are your 3 dimensions. Everything you can touch and see, from the phone in your hand to a slice of pizza, exists within these 3 directions. It's solid, it's predictable, it's home.
Okay, so we're all comfortable in our 3D world, right? Good. Now, let's throw a wrench in the works. What happens when we try to add one more direction to that box? This is where the idea of a fourth dimension gets really interesting, mainly because it isn't just one single thing.
Yeah, see, this is where it gets a little tricky, because 4D doesn't just mean one thing. In physics, especially when you hear people talk about Einstein, that fourth dimension is time. But in the world of pure mathematics, it can be an entirely new spatial direction, something we can't see or point to, something totally beyond up, down, left, and right. We're going to look at both.
Let's try to visualize this by climbing what I like to call the dimensional ladder. Imagine a 1D line. Now pull that line out sideways. Boom, you've got a 2D square. Now take that flat square and pull it straight up into the air. You've just created a 3D cube. Okay, now for the mind-bending part. Imagine you could grab every single point on that cube and pull it all into a new direction, one that's at a right angle to length, width, and height. The object you'd create? That's a tesseract, the 4D version of a cube.
Okay, that math is kinda wild, but how does any of this actually apply to the real world? Let's start with the version you've probably heard of, the one that completely revolutionized science, the idea that the fourth dimension is time.
And this brings us right back to that key analogy, the photo versus the movie. In 3D, an object is just a snapshot. You see a building as it is right now. But in 4D spacetime, you see the entire story of that building, from the day its foundation was poured to its current state and all the way into its future. You're seeing the whole movie, not just one single frozen frame.
Here's another way to wrap your head around it that I absolutely love. A 3D view shows you a caterpillar. Just there it is. But the 4D spacetime view, it reveals the creature's entire journey, its complete existence, as it transforms from caterpillar to cocoon to butterfly. From a 4D perspective, these aren't separate things at all. They're all just connected points of one single event that's unfolding through time.
And look, this is not just some neat little thought experiment. This 4D model is the absolute foundation of Einstein's theory of relativity. It tells us that gravity isn't a force pulling you down. It's the actual shape of space-time itself being bent and curved by massive objects. This one idea is crucial for understanding black holes, while light bends around stars, and, get this, for making the GPS on your phone actually work. Without it, your location will be off by miles every single day.
But 4D isn't just for theoretical physics and mapping the cosmos. The term has kind of jumped into our everyday lives to describe experiences and tech that add a layer of time, or change, or even physical sensations to our 3D world. Let's look at some real-life examples. You've probably seen this one. A 3D movie is cool, right? The visuals pop out at you, tricking your eyes into seeing depth. But a 4D movie, that's a whole other level. It adds physical sensation. The seats rumble and shake. You feel a gust of wind. You might even smell the scene. It's the difference between watching a storm through a window and actually feeling the rain.
Now this is where things get really futuristic. We all know 3D printing. It builds a static object, layer by layer. But 4D printing adds the dimension of time. It creates objects that can literally transform themselves. You use these smart materials that react to things like heat or water. So you could say, print a medical stent that ships totally flat, but expands to the perfect shape once it's inside the human body. It's wild stuff. And in medicine, adding this fourth dimension, time, is a total game changer. A 3D ultrasound gives you a beautiful but still image of an unborn baby. But a 4D ultrasound, that shows you a live video feed. You can actually see the baby moving, kicking, yawning, and reacting in real time. It's not just a picture anymore. It's a little glimpse into life as it's actually happening. So we've looked at 4D as this grand cosmic structure of space-time and as a new frontier in our own technology. All right, let's take a breath and pull all these pieces together and really nail down the core differences.
Okay, let's just break it down. Side by side, in 3D, we've got our three axes, X, Y, and Z, and familiar shapes like cubes. In 4D, we add that fourth axis, leading to those mind-bending shapes like tesseracts. This shifts our whole understanding of physics from predictable Newtonian space to the dynamic space-time of Einstein. But maybe the biggest difference of all is how we see it. We experience 3D directly, but we can only ever understand 4D indirectly.
And that leads to a really profound, kind of humbling final point. We are 3D beings. Our brains literally evolved to navigate a 3D world. So just like a 2D creature living on a flat piece of paper could never truly comprehend a 3D sphere passing through its world, it would only see a circle that grows and then shrinks. We can only ever perceive the 3D shadows of a true 4D object.
So whether it's the fabric of space-time or the future of self-assembling materials, the fourth dimension forces us to see the world not as a collection of static things, but as a dynamic, unfolding story. And it leaves us with one last fascinating question to chew on. If our 3D reality is just one slice, one shadow of a 4D universe, what other realities might we be missing entirely?